Right now, as you're watching this video, there are American soldiers sleeping, eating, and working at military bases scattered across the Middle East, and some of them don't even know they're sitting on Iran's most carefully studied target list. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This isn't fear-mongering. Iranian military planners have spent decades mapping, analyzing, and wargaming exactly what they would do if the Gulf ever exploded into open war. And today, we're going to walk you through the 3 U.S. bases that military analysts, intelligence reports, and geopolitical experts believe Iran would strike first. Not eventually, not maybe, but in the opening hours of a conflict. Because in modern warfare, the first strike doesn't just cause damage, it sends a message. It shapes the entire war. And Iran knows this better than almost anyone. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear is going to completely change the way you think about U.S. military presence in the Middle East. Before we get into it, drop a comment right now and tell us where in the world you're watching this from. Whether you're in the United States, the UK, Pakistan, India, Canada, or anywhere else, we genuinely want to know. Our audience comes from all over the globe, and it always blows us away to see just how many countries are tuned in. So go ahead, drop your country in the comments. We'll be reading every single one. Now, let's set the stage. Because you cannot understand which bases Iran would hit first without understanding how Iran actually thinks about war. Iran is not a country that fights like the United States. It doesn't have the aircraft carriers, the stealth bombers, or the satellite-guided precision strike capabilities that America does. What Iran has is something different, and in many ways, something more dangerous for a regional conflict. Iran has spent the last 40 years building what military strategists call an asymmetric warfare doctrine. That means instead of matching America weapon for weapon, Iran has developed the ability to cause maximum pain at minimum cost. Ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drone swarms, proxy forces spread across multiple countries, cyber capabilities that can knock out infrastructure, and a deeply sophisticated understanding of where America is most vulnerable in the region. Iranian military planners are students of history. They watched what happened in the 1991 Gulf War. They watched the 2003 Iraq invasion. They saw how Saddam Hussein's military collapsed in days because it tried to fight America conventionally head-on, force against force. Iran drew a completely different lesson from that. They said, "We will never fight America on America's terms. We will force America to fight on ours." And that philosophy shapes everything, including the target list we're going to walk through today. When Iranian generals sit in their war rooms and ask the question, where do we strike first? They're not just thinking about what causes the most explosions. They're thinking about what disrupts American command and control, what stretches American logistics, what sends a psychological shock through the U.S. military and its allies, and what buys Iran the most time and strategic space in the opening phase of a conflict. With that context in your mind, let's talk about the first base. And this one is going to surprise some of you, because it's not the most famous American base in the region. It's not the biggest, but according to analysts who study Iranian military planning, it might be the most strategically valuable target Iran could possibly hit in the opening hours of a war. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. If you've never heard of it, let that sink in for a second. This is the largest U.S. military base in the entire Middle East. It sits just outside Doha, Qatar, and it is the beating heart of American air power in the region. Al Udeid is home to the U.S. Air Force's Central Command. That's the headquarters that oversees all American air operations across the Middle East and Central Asia. It houses over 10,000 U.S. military personnel. It has one of the longest runways in the entire region, capable of handling the largest aircraft in the American arsenal. B-52 bombers have flown missions from this base. Refueling tankers that keep fighter jets in the air for hours take off from here. Surveillance aircraft that provide real-time battlefield intelligence operate out of Al Udeid around the clock. Now think about this from Iran's perspective. If you want to blind the American military, if you want to take away its eyes, disrupt its command structure, and ground as many aircraft as possible in the opening hours of a conflict, where do you strike? You strike the place where all of that is coordinated. You strike Al Udeid. Iranian military planners know that if they can hit Al Udeid hard enough, even temporarily, fighter jets that were supposed to be refueled in American air operations across the entire surveillance missions get canceled. Command decisions that should take minutes start taking hours. And in modern warfare, hours can feel like weeks. Now, here's what makes this scenario even more chilling. Iran doesn't need to destroy Al-Udeid to achieve its strategic goal. It just needs to damage it enough to disrupt operations, and Iran has the weapons to reach Qatar. Iran's Shahab, 3 ballistic missile, its Ahmad missile, and its more advanced Khaybar-Sheikhan missile all have ranges that put Qatar within striking distance from Iranian soil. Iran has also developed precision-guided versions of these missiles that have shown remarkable accuracy in previous strikes, including the January 2020 strike on Ain al-Assad Air Base in Iraq, where Iranian ballistic missiles hit within meters of their intended targets. That strike was a message, a demonstration. Iran was telling the world, we can reach you, and we can hit what we're aiming at. Qatar, of course, has its own complex relationship with Iran. The two countries even share the world's largest natural gas field. But Iranian military planners operate under the assumption that in a full-scale conflict, Qatar's political relationship with Iran becomes secondary to its military relationship with the United States. And so, Al-Udeid sits at the very top of Iranian target planning, according to multiple defense analysts who have studied Iranian military doctrine in depth. The second base on this list sits in a country that might make you do a double-take. Because this country shares a border with Iran. It has a complex, sometimes friendly, sometimes hostile relationship with Tehran. And yet, nestled within it is a U.S. military installation that Iranian planners view as an absolutely critical target. We're talking about Ain al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. Yes, the same base that Iran struck in January 2020 after the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani. And that's actually what makes this so important. That strike told us something incredibly revealing about how Iran thinks. When Iran decided to retaliate for the killing of its most powerful military commander, a moment of extraordinary national emotion and pressure, the target it chose was Ain al-Assad. Not a civilian target, not a symbolic building, a military base. Because Iran wanted to demonstrate capability while still leaving room for de-escalation. But here's the thing that most people missed in the news coverage of that strike. Iran telegraphed it. Iran warned Iraq, which warned the United States, giving American forces time to take shelter. No Americans were killed, though over 100 suffered traumatic brain injuries. Iranian officials later made clear that the restrained nature of that strike was a political choice, not a capability limitation. In a real war, with no warning, with full operational intent, the strike on Ain al-Assad would look nothing like what happened in 2020. Ain al-Assad is located in Anbar province in western Iraq. It's a sprawling facility that has housed thousands of American troops involved in training Iraqi forces and conducting counterterrorism operations. It sits in a region where Iranian-backed militias already have a strong presence. And that's what makes it uniquely vulnerable. Iran doesn't just have ballistic missiles pointed at it from across the border. Iran has proxy forces Iraqi militias aligned with Tehran that operate in the surrounding region and could launch coordinated ground and rocket attacks in conjunction with a missile strike. This is the layered warfare that makes Iranian military strategy so difficult to counter. It's not just missiles from Iran. It's missiles from Iran plus rocket attacks from proxy forces in Iraq plus potential sabotage operations plus cyber attacks on communication systems all hitting simultaneously. The concept is called multi-domain saturation. Overwhelm the defenders across so many different attack vectors at once that they cannot effectively respond to any of them. Ain al-Assad, given its location in the heart of Iranian proxy territory and its proximity to Iran's own borders, is the perfect target for this kind of coordinated, layered assault. American military planners know this, which is why there have been ongoing debates within the U.S. defense establishment about the long-term viability of maintaining a large presence at bases like Ain al-Assad given the evolving threat environment. But U.S. forces remain there, and in Iranian war planning, it remains a primary target for day one of any conflict. Now we come to the third base. And this one is where things get truly alarming because this installation represents something far beyond just a military target. Striking it would be a declaration that Iran is willing to escalate far beyond anything we've seen in decades of Middle Eastern conflict. We're talking about Naval Support Activity Bahrain, the home of the United States Navy's Fifth Fleet. Bahrain is a tiny island nation in the Persian Gulf, connected to Saudi Arabia by the King Fahd Causeway. It is so small that you could drive across it in about 30 minutes. But don't let its size fool you. NSA Bahrain is the command and control hub for all U.S. naval operations in the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, the Gulf of Oman, and parts of the Indian Ocean. Every American aircraft carrier that enters the Persian Gulf, every destroyer, every guided missile cruiser, they all fall under the operational umbrella of the command that is headquartered in Bahrain. This is where the admirals sit. This is where naval strategy for the entire region is coordinated. This is the brain of American naval power in the Gulf. And Iran's entire military strategy in the Gulf is built around one fundamental objective: sea denial. The ability to make the Persian Gulf too dangerous and too costly for American naval forces to operate in freely. Iran has invested enormous resources in anti-ship missiles, submarine capabilities, fast attack boat swarms, and naval mines, all designed to threaten American ships in the confined waters of the Gulf. But sinking ships is only half the equation. The other half is taking out the command structure that coordinates those ships. If Iran strikes NSA Bahrain, it doesn't just potentially damage physical infrastructure. It throws U.S. naval command in the Gulf into disarray. It forces the Fifth Fleet to operate without its primary shore-based coordination center. It disrupts communications between ships. It potentially takes key personnel out of the decision-making chain at exactly the moment when fast, coordinated decisions are most critical. Iran's medium-range ballistic missiles can absolutely reach Bahrain. The straight-line distance from Iran's southwestern coast to Bahrain is roughly 200 kilometers, well within range of multiple Iranian missile systems. Iran has also developed and demonstrated anti-ship ballistic missiles, a capability that very few countries in the world possess, specifically designed to hit moving naval targets in the Gulf. If those missiles can reach a moving aircraft carrier, they can certainly reach a fixed naval base. There's also the human dimension to consider. Bahrain has a majority Shia Muslim population, and Iran has cultivated relationships with various Shia political groups in the country over many decades. Iranian intelligence services have a well-established presence throughout the Gulf region. In a conflict scenario, the possibility of coordinated insider threats, intelligence leaks, or even small-scale attacks by Iran-aligned actors within Bahrain itself adds another layer of vulnerability to NSA Bahrain as a target. Striking the Fifth Fleet's home base would be the most aggressive and escalatory act Iran could take. It would be a direct attack on the symbol of American naval dominance in the Gulf. It would trigger a massive American response. Iranian planners know this. But they also operate under the doctrine that in a war for survival, and Iranian leaders genuinely view certain conflict scenarios in existential terms,